Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans heading down to Houston on Sunday to face the Texans for the second time in 3 weeks. Both rookie quarterbacks trending towards playing this week, as Will Levis and C.J. Stroud have been full participants at practice. Mike Vrabel will meet with the media in about an hour to update injuries. The Lee Company countdown to kickoff starts at 9 a.m. on The Zone. Titans countdown hits the air at 11, and kickoff on New Year's Eve is at noon with Mike Keith, Coach Mack, and the rest of the Titans radio crew. Week 17 will continue in the NFL on Saturday. Lions at Cowboys. Both have clinched a playoff spot in the NFC. Kickoff at 7:25. You can catch the Westwood One coverage right here on The Zone. Tonight, the Nashville Predators are in Detroit to face the Red Wings. Puck drop is at 6 p.m. College football bowl season wrapping up this weekend. The TransPerfect Music City Bowl at Nissan Stadium kicks off at 1 p.m. tomorrow between Auburn and Maryland. And on New Year's Day, Tennessee and Iowa kick off the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl at noon. Vol Network coverage starts on The Zone at 10 a.m. The college football playoff semifinals begin Monday afternoon. Alabama and Michigan at 4 o'clock. Washington and Texas kick off at 7:45. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey with Blaine Bishop and Mickey Ryan, except for today when it's Mickey Ryan and Brad Hopkins, who's filling in for the Hitman. What up, man? Thanks for hanging out 2 days in a row. I thought I might have run you off yesterday.
Whose voice are you doing right there?
The announcer guy, the big voice guy. Blaine and
I hope he's not
Mickey.
listening because that wasn't a good rendition of how he sounds.
No, he sounds just like that in my head. Like a puker. That's what we used to call that. Have you guys ever heard of pukers?
What the hell is that?
Like a wacky
No.
FM DJ. This is kind of crazy. This is unplanned. Here we go. Then I'll get you Titans injury report for Friday, which you're going to like if you're a Titans fan. Okay, I'll save that. When you grow up in a small town, you listen to the radio. All the little town radio DJs, and I'm from little town, surrounded by little towns, they all sound like this because they all think that's how radio people are supposed to sound. And so it's just some guy who's maybe from that town, and he had a good voice, and so he became the number one DJ on the little radio station in the little town that you're from. But they all sound like this. They all have some big booming voice. They sound like this or some variation of that. And you're thinking, okay. So, I thought I'll be in broadcasting. I guess that's how people sound. And I just could never do it. It gives me a headache. It makes me dizzy if I try to talk like that. It hurts my throat. I thought, I'll never make it in radio.
You're straining.
I'll never make it. Yeah, it looks like you're trying to poo.
Like you're constipated. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so then I later left where I was from, and you find out like regular people, they just talk like themselves. Like if you listen to radio stations in Nashville, people just talk for the most part like themselves. You like the great Lisa Manning, who's down the hall right now, one of our.
Yeah.
Lisa Manning has the best voice of anybody in radio, I think, but she just talks like Lisa Manning. So when I see her in the hall, that's exactly how she sounds.
I think you graduate to that moment, though.
Where you just sound like yourself.
Because a lot of times, if you're like me, I don't like the sound of my own voice.
I'm with you.
So when I hear somebody that I feel, man, I wish I sound like them, I kind of try and sound like them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Until you get comfortable enough to just start saying words the way you would say them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just finally become comfortable with the way that you talk, and then you just go ahead and start speaking. You know what I mean?
I know.
Like if I were listening to Mickey Ryan, I'd be like, yeah, he's so smooth, man. I want to sound just like him. And I'd start probably taking some of your Mickeyisms and doing some of the stuff that you do because I feel that's the way that you should do it because it's really cool. And then after a while, I'd be like, okay, it's kind of hard being Mickey, so let me just be me and see if I can then adapt to liking how I sound.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Right, Joseph? Right?
Yeah, I went to college with a guy who did some PA announcing, and he always growled, like he made it, he made his voice into a growl, and it wasn't good. It really wasn't good.
Oh,
And-
Friday night PA announcers have they got some wild
Yeah.
stuff going on.
But
God bless them.
He would also kind of do that on air sometimes, like when he was trying to do his on-air voice, I guess. And so, I'm with you, Brad. I don't really like the sound of my own voice, but I'm not going to come over here and give a fake voice out.
You have to come up with a wacky FM DJ voice, Joseph. You have to. You're going to have to develop one, even as a character for the show. So that's your New Year's resolution.
Okay, that's my New Year's resolution.
Is to find some, like Joey Bananas.
But I got to get some, like, Italian, like, like a Tommy DeVito type thing where I'm in here and just.
Joey Cutler.
We'll make a segment out of it.
JB. I mean, that'd be kind of hard for you to do that, to get the Italian.
Yes.
But I will say this, harder to do that as a talk show host where your words are the content versus you spinning records and getting in and out of a song.
True.
Shoot, you might be feeling like the song that's coming up. Hey, this is Michael Jackson coming up. And you're talking like that, right? But if you did that for an entire segment where you're talking about sports, you'd sound like a dummy. You know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with this dude?
You would pass out.
Right.
You would not be able to keep that up.
I'm about to pass out now. My face is all red from just doing Joey Bananas.
If you had to do that for 5 days a week for several hours a day, you would not be able to keep up. Not consistently.
Tighten Up Tony says in the F&M Bank chat, find your own voice. So if you ever ask me, you're a teacher, and you say, hey, would you come and speak to my class on broadcasting or whatever? That's one of the things I tell everybody.
Find your own voice.
You just find your own voice. Because exactly what you said, Brad, you're going to find like, gosh, I like the way that guy or that lady does things. Man, they got it figured out. I like the way they present things. I like the way they say their points. But you got to find your own way of doing it. So there you go, kids.
I think because people don't want to put themselves out there like that. You know, like, golly, he sounds terrible. But if he sounds like somebody, that guy sounds like somebody that's popular, somebody you like, you know what I mean? Versus you doing it on your own. Because I like singing, right? So whenever I'd be singing the song, especially in front of my mom, she'd say, well, sing it like you sing. Instead of trying to sound like the person that you are trying to emulate. You know what I mean? It's different then, like to step out on your own and kind of like find your own vocal range and sing like you would sing versus singing like the song that you hear all the time.
I have a friend who was a demo singer for years, and he was the go-to demo singer in the
What's a demo singer?
A demo singer is, let's say that Joseph wrote a country song. He would go and get it recorded and just have somebody sing it for him.
Oh, that's wild.
So he'd have session musicians. So maybe like you'd play the drums and I'd play the bass and Lucas would play the guitars. And then you'd have somebody, we were thinking maybe it sound like Garth Brooks. So you'd go find somebody who sings like Garth Brooks and he'd come in and sing it. So or you'd say, boy, this is more of a George Strait song. Give me a guy that sounds like George Strait. And then you would have a guy who sounds like George Strait sing it, and you would send it to George Strait's people, and he'd go, oh, it sounds like, yeah, man, I like that. And then they can kind of hear themselves singing it, or if they're George's manager, oh, that kind of sounds like George. Yeah. Sounds like something George would do. So this guy was such a good demo singer. Finally, one day he went to like his own, management and said, why can't I get a deal? And they said, because you don't have your own voice.
Ooh.
So he had same deal. He had to go and find his own voice.
Did he?
He did.
Do we know who he is?
Well, let's just say this. He had a nice, he's kind of quieted down in his career now, but he had a nice little run at one point.
Okay.
Yeah. A fellow Arkansan like me. So had a nice little run, still out there doing his thing.
Nice.
So, but anyway, just an interesting little story. Here's your interesting story from the Titans today. This is from Jimmy Wyatt. Every player on the Titans injury report was spotted at Friday's practice. This is from Jimmy Wyatt. Will Levis in line to start versus the Houston Texans per Mike Vrabel. Now, there's a bunch of dudes on IR, but everybody who's not on IR is going to tape it up and go.
Yeah. A couple of games left. You can kind of see the water circling the drain, right?
Yeah.
Might as well go ahead and get it in, especially for a guy that's had, I'm going to say, a pretty productive season. Even though he didn't start out being the starter, filled in admirably until actually we felt comfortable enough with labeling him the starter to finish out the last couple of games, getting that rapport with a youngish receiving core. Maybe that pays off into going into the offseason thinking that you can do some stuff for next year. But like listening to Lucas and Buck in the last hour, Will has given us some things to be excited about in a 5-win season. You know what I mean? People can see a future potentially. Now, getting the right people around him, that would help, definitely help. I think DeAndre Hopkins was a tremendous acquisition. He's going to be around for another year. We'll see that continue to develop. But he needs help, too. Can't be just he and D-Hop out there running an offense. Of course, we know that the situation surrounding Derrick Henry has a huge question mark over it. Do you sign an aging running back that has meant so much to this franchise, been a constant cog for what we've been trying to do? But when you've got young, exciting players like Tajay Spears coming into the mix and players that we can see developing into bigger roles, you kind of want to see what the offseason looks. This is the conversation that you have surrounding a team that doesn't have anything to play for anymore, other than just maybe knocking off other teams. Like this weekend, a loss for the Texans would be catastrophic. And sometimes that is the motivation, right? Because they're in a three-way tie for the division. And what better way than to have them sitting at home with us?
Does that come up? Because fans like to talk about that. Like, they need to go play spoiler. Does that come up in the locker room?
Absolutely.
Like, let's ruin these guys' new year.
Listen, I'm not going to be playing in the playoffs. I'm not going to be playing any sort of championship game. And neither are you.
Ooh.
That's the motivation, you see? I want you sitting home in your living room just like I am. Because guess what? Misery loves company.
Well, this is going to be, because you mentioned Will Levis has done enough to show, like, okay, they don't have to find another. They need to find a veteran backup. That'll be a saga that I think plays out over the off season. Is
sure
who will be the Fitzmagic or the Case Keenum or the Gardner Minshew type guy who comes in and is Will Levis's backup, because I would imagine it'll be somebody along those lines. I'm just throwing out names. I don't know.
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco.
See, no, Flacco's a starter. Okay? Flacco's not a backup. Flacco's a starter. And he's proven that again, even though he was sitting in his kitchen making pancakes and stuff for the kids for a lot of this season. They found him at the right time.
A month and a half ago, and now he's the best. He's
one
of the best quarterbacks
You heard the game last night,
now.
JB? Flacco. They were going nuts.
He has 4 300-yard games, right?
Yeah.
In a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was throwing to his dad and his brother-in-law. I think they were showing them last night. Said he tore up his dad's hands.
Tommy. It's his brother, Tommy Flacco. Yeah, seriously, what a great story. A guy that, people kind of rinsed out with the bathwater. His agent gets him an opportunity, and he just ran with it. The fourth iteration of starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. See, and when we talk with Kim Davis in a little bit, I want to bring that up to her, because I thought that DeMeco Ryan might be a guy that's up for Coach of the Year. But what Kevin Stefanski has done with the turnstile of quarterbacks, now given the fact that he does have a tremendous defense to work with, that helps offensively. Still, man, I mean, that's what a great story that Joe Flacco has to this point.
You saw a Cliff Notes version of that. Neil O'Donnell, who looked to be done and came back off the couch. He was working out at the Y, and he won the final game of the season. Was it 03? So early 2000.
Yeah.
He didn't play that year. The Titans had kind of moved on, had injuries. He came off the couch and started the last game and then stayed with the team through the playoff run. But somebody asked him, where were you working out? He goes, I was working out at the Y.
So I work out.
Yeah.
People were ticked off, in fact, when Steve came back healthy after that back surgery. Because they wanted, I think Neil won 3 straight games or something. They were like ticked off.
Well, in 99, yeah.
Yeah.
Neil was, I think, 4-1 as a starter.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about years later he came off the couch after he was done. So for Flacco, and hey, man, I watched that game last night. He was moving around.
That play he
working
made,
him out of the pocket.
That play he made running to his left, getting chased down, and then turning at the last second and just flicking it to the running back was insane.
How about Jerome Ford, though, turning that into a touchdown? That dude that's a 5th-round pick, though. See, I think that's the secret. I know we're up against it. The secret is you understand what you get from first-rounders. You just hope that they live up to expectation.
Right.
But when you can find 3rd, 4th, 5th-round picks that play like starters, and, of course, their salaries are garbage at that point because nobody's invested any kind of money in them. And all of a sudden they start looking like the next thing, like Jerome Ford coming out of Texas Tech, a la Alabama or wherever he came from. I mean, what a great story. And he looked tremendous last night.
Yeah.
And think about who they lost in front of him. Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb. Well, Kareem Hunt was out there. But still, the point was nobody was relying on him to be anything. And he's now just playing a pivotal role for the Browns offense.
Well, if you like you mentioned Stefanski, he is getting the most out of everybody on the roster. Yeah. I mean, he's getting the most. They've had, you mentioned the quarterback carousel. They've had 4 quarterbacks who've thrown at least 100 passes this season, which I don't think that's ever happened in league history.
It's crazy.
They've had 4. Let's pass this to Kim Davis. She'll join us next, a reporter out of Houston, host of Chalk Talk. We'll get to chalk on the board. We'll talk about the Titans and the Texans and more. That's coming up next. Blaine and Mickey with special guest Brad Hopkins. Blaine and Mickey powered by All 4 Seasons Garage Doors. Blaine and Mickey hanging out. Happy New Year to everybody. Brad Hopkins, B-Hop, hanging out for the Hitman today. B-Hop spent some time in Houston. That's where our next guest, she spends all her time there. Kim Davis at Kimmy Davis on Twitter, host of Chalk Talk. Miss Kim, how are you doing today? Thanks for the time.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. It looks like we are going to get this rookie quarterback matchup. We're going to get a look at the future on Sunday. Mike Vrabel said about 10 minutes ago, Will Levis is going to go. And as you guys know, down in Houston, C.J. Stroud is going to go. AFC South's got a chance to be exciting over this next decade or so.
It absolutely does. I mean, if you think about just what's happening at the young quarterbacks in this division, I can tell you people in Houston, not just in the organization, but all around town are excited to have their young quarterback back on the field on Sunday. We'll see how he looks. He's been out a couple weeks, as you guys know. Will there be rust? We don't know what'll happen, but it's excitement for sure.
So, Brad is going to ask you about maybe Coach of the Year and where D'Amico Ryans fits into that structure. But let me ask you this. Is Stroud the Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, I think, if he finishes the last two games of the season the way he's played, the first part, I think he is. Otherwise, you got that little receiver, that has made quite a name for himself. But I do think he's done enough to this point. If he just has two solid games, that is his. I think it's his award to lose.
I think that's fair. Kim Davis hanging out with us here on Blaine and Mickey. Brad Hopkins and at Kimmy Davis on Twitter. Follow her there.
Kim, you know what? D'Amico Ryan, in my opinion, the guy that formerly wore the Texans uniform, has done a tremendous job of galvanizing kind of a middle-of-the-road team. And I did, just like Mickey kind of prefaced, I did have him maybe as my coach of the year. The performance that Joe Flacco put on last night, coupled with what Kevin Stefanski has been dealing with for the 2023 season, might edge that whole situation out. But just talk about the job that D'Amico has done in just his first year as the head coach down there in Houston.
Brad, it's a great point, and it's a great question. I mean, D'Amico has been phenomenal. I think people around the league, and even quite frankly, those of us who cover the team, we looked at this roster and going from OTAs and through the summer and camp and starting out. I don't think that anyone had expectations to see them perform this way. I credit that to coaching. I mean, not every player was overlooked, right? So what he has been able to do in terms of galvanizing this team. I mean, CJ's special on his own, but what you put around him. I mean, listen, the offensive line has changed sometimes almost weekly. And when you don't have any kind of continuity up front with a young play caller, a young quarterback, and to have him perform the way he has, a lot of that has to do with the work D'Amico's done. What you also said is true. That game last night may have sealed it for Stefanski, because what he's done in Cleveland and with Joe Flacco has come, as they say, out of the carpool line and done, has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, Kim, but think about these names, though. D'Amico Ryan, Antonio Pierce in Las Vegas, Mike Vrabel here in Tennessee, regardless of the challenges that he's had this year. Should coaches that don't have playing experience be on notice with these guys that are having success almost instantaneously, you think?
I think they should. And you mentioned Antonio Pierce. I hope that what we've seen is that the Raiders this time will take a serious look at their interim guy because of what he's been able to do. That's got to count. Those things have got to start counting for something. Now, Brad, as you know, not every player is going to be a great coach or a great broadcaster. Right. But when you find those talents that they have, you got to pluck those guys and put them in, because I think they're able to turn things around more quickly because they've been in the trenches and they know what it takes.
Hanging out with Kim Davis. How healthy, because you mentioned the O-line has changed sometimes week to week. We've experienced that phenomenon here in Nashville as well. How beat up is the Texans defense? Because I saw Jonathan Grenard hasn't been practicing, and we're all having nightmares from the last time we saw him 2 weeks ago. How beat up is the defense over there?
Well, listen, it's late December. So first of all, there's that. But they've been banged up. I mean, being out of practice this week. Today, that Will Anderson did get back on the practice field.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Right.
But Jonathan Grenard did not. I don't know what that means for Sunday, but he may not be terrorizing your Titans team on Sunday. We don't know yet because I have not seen the updated injury report. They could be without a couple of their guys up front. They got a couple that are probably coming back. Blake Cashman, who's, they missed him, a linebacker who's probably their best linebacker in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So they get a couple guys back and they lose a couple guys. So, those whole game time decisions, right?
Here we go again, huh?
Here we go again. Yeah, exactly.
At game time 2 weeks ago, the Texans made a decision that Derrick Henry wasn't going to do anything that day. This is a dude who'd had over 1,000 yards in the previous 5 games. He had 1,000 yards in 5 games. Then he had his worst game as a starter. I know Grenard, some of the defensive guys are beat up. Where do we fall in this game? Do you think it's somewhere in between, or can they literally shut him down to 9 yards rushing again?
Okay, so he's way too good, I think, to see that performance. So maybe somewhere between the making his living on the Texans' run defense and just being totally shut down. I think that I expect him to. He's just too good of a player, even at this point in his career, to be held to 9-10 yards from scrimmage. But if they can keep him from, earning all of his bonuses on Sunday. Then, quite frankly, I've also covered Tim Kelly, and I don't know that I expect in 2 weeks to see a lot different in terms of game plan and scheme. So he'll do better because he's just that good. But it'll be interesting on Sunday, man. It's going to be interesting. 2 weeks is, Brad, did you ever play a team that close together when you played? Do you remember?
As far as like the chemistry and whatnot?
No, play a team
twice in 3 weeks.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think it might have been even the Jaguars one year.
You might be
and
right.
actually,
yeah.
Kim, I'm glad you asked that question because it made it easier preparing for them. Because one, you got to watch some more recent film of you playing against that team, right? And not really much has changed from the last time you play. It's almost like one of those gut check games, right? Whether you won or you lost, you want to try and improve on the things that they took advantage of. But then you can see yourself doing better than maybe. What some of the mistakes you made. So yeah, it's not that hard to prepare for a team that you just played a couple of weeks ago, but it is interesting to see those matchups like that. Yeah,
I think it's certainly because the league is trying to make the games late in the season matter more. Because now the decision, the division is still up in the air, so to speak.
So yesterday, Mickey and I talked, Kim, about the importance of the number 2. And I got to say, I was surprised when Case Keenum got the start against the Titans a couple of weeks back over Davis Mills, who, in my opinion, did enough in that 2022 campaign to where if they didn't go with C.J. Stroud in the draft, I wouldn't have been that surprised. He was a third rounder, right? The 67th pick or whatever. But, just your thoughts about what Davis Mills has done. He's under contract for a couple of more years, so it's not like he's going to be somebody's potential starter or at least challenging a starter someplace else. But, your thoughts about the job that he did, filling in, especially coming in and throwing a couple of touchdowns last week after Case Keenum got the start.
So, it's interesting that you say that because when the week before, when we knew CJ was out, I actually thought, I was like, man, I'd give the ball to Case. And of course, many of my colleagues like, what are you on? What are you talking about? I just thought that week that he was the guy because of his experience. But last week, and then you go, well, do you flip it? I mean, clearly Davis has a stronger arm. He can make some throws that Case just can't throw. And so I think it has to come down to, can you trust him? I've also seen him make some plays, make some throws, but I've seen him not be either be too rigid and not be able to really slide around in the pocket. And you've got that front. I don't know. He's more mobile than Case. Like, let's be clear about that. But to answer your question, I think he's done enough to be the clear number 2, but the number 2 is important. I mean, we're sitting here talking earlier about Cleveland, and Flacco, and then you look at Cincinnati without Burrow, and then, when the Jaguars got beat up, I mean, the number 2 is, if not before this year, it's certainly going to be a much better focus, I would imagine, for teams' personnel departments moving forward.
Yeah, we're talking with Chalk Talk's very own Kim Davis here on the show, and it seems like those young quarterbacks that you mentioned, whether it be C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson, even Trevor Lawrence, they have the luxury of having a stout rushing attack. And that brings me to the Dameon Pierce versus Devin Singletary discussion. Now, I don't want either one of these dudes to run for 100 yards against us, but still, you've got to acknowledge the fact that Devin Singletary having the year that he's had there. I don't know how close he is to 1,000, but it's well-deserved. Where did he come from, basically?
So, he came from, the Bills. And I think what happens with him is, they call him Motor, what a great nickname, right? he's able to, he runs north-south a little bit better. I mean, Damian Pierce is more of a downhill runner, and I think Damian, after starting this season a little banged up and then coming in, I just think the scheme is different. And so then maybe it checks your confidence a little bit different. I mean, the way Singletary rides on the hip of those offensive linemen and is able to make space, right? His vision is just, it's impressive. But you're right. You look at what DP did last year. Last week you saw him run back a kickoff return for a touchdown. Part of it, I'm sure it comes down to confidence. After you haven't done something well for a minute, you start to kind of check yourself, and then maybe you're overthinking it. He hadn't said that because we haven't talked to him a whole lot, but I still think he's got something that could be helpful, and so they've got to be able to run the ball. I mean, that's you said it. You hit the nail on the head. But Motor's pretty special.
Yeah, motored all over the Titans up here a couple of weeks ago. We can still hear that motor running all up and down the Cumberland River over there. It's interesting because Titans fans are like, okay, this year's it's been bad, but boy, the Titans got a lot of money to spend in free agency. Well, guess what? Down in Houston, the year's been pretty good, and you guys are fifth most in cap space to spend on. I mean, as excited, I think, as Titans are to kind of take that grocery list and the grocery money and start spending it, the Texans seem to have a pretty bright future ahead with the money they've got to spend and the people they've already acquired.
I think, like I said, for those of us who don't play the game, I mean, I think some of the people who performed this year were like, oh wow, okay, and so then who do you keep? Who do you go out and get? I mean, I mentioned earlier about a guy like Blake Cashman. No one said it to me, but certainly you want to keep him, from what he's stepped in and been able to do. Dalton Schultz, I think the tight end is super important to this offense, and he's a guy. I mean, they have a few guys on their team that I'll be curious to see what happens in the offseason, but they still have some needs, right? They still have some needs. I think they put a lot of money and resources into the offensive line. Does Kenyon Green come back, and is he healthy? And then can he be the left guard they thought that he could be when they drafted him? We don't know yet. That's a huge if. And you spent a first-round pick on him, so you got to see. You probably got to get some help in your secondary. You probably got to get a linebacker. I mean, they've got some needs, but it's exciting that they not only have some money, they've got some picks still left from that Deshaun Watson trade. So
wow.
We'll see about that.
I'm sure people in Cleveland are just thrilled about that trade as Joe Flacco gets out of the carpool line, as you said, and takes his job from him. Talking to Kim Davis, at Kimmy Davis, host of Chalk Talk in Houston, H-Town.
Let me ask you guys a quick question. I don't know if you watched the game last night, and Flacco after the half, after he threw 300 yards, sit on the sideline, did he just look spent? I know he was like, what in the world?
He fell asleep, Kim. He was nodding off over there. Sometimes it can be that exciting, right? The emotion that goes into that. He knew he was having a tremendous half. And the fact that actually it kind of went south a little bit when Elijah Moore went down, former Jet. Yeah. I'm sure he came into that matchup being playing against his former team. He came in there with some little energy too. But when he got hurt, and that was a crazy situation watching his arms flailing around as he took that face mask to the ground on the tackle.
Yeah.
But you saw the limitations there. But David Njoku has really stepped up, and kind of held things together while Amari Cooper was nursing an injury on the sideline. But
can you please not mention his name? Because people here are still having some nightmares about Amari Cooper.
Oh, yeah, exactly, and rightfully so. I mean, Amari Cooper has shown that he's still got some things left in the tank, too, especially after the performance that he had against Houston. But let me ask you this. When the Texans came a-calling, I saw some posters, Kim, that said that they were coming for the Derrick. That oil Derrick is what we're talking about. And I'm sure there was much mention maybe about the Titans wearing the Oilers uniforms from back in the day. Is there much mention down there in the city of Houston about the history of our program and how it matches up with the current regime of pro sports down there? Because I got to admit it, I was jealous as heck to see it was then Reliant Stadium being built right next to Astrodome, which was so dysfunctional. I thought now it's full of cats. Just the fact that Bob McNair was able to pull off money from the public to kind of rebuild the NFL in Houston. Just talk a little bit about the history of us leaving and the Texans replacing us.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was talking to a friend I have in the market, and I said I cover the Oilers. I mean, I started when I was 10, if you're doing the math.
Sure.
And then I covered when Bob McNair was granted the franchise. And so what it came down to was two men with a lot of money, the then mayor Bob Lanier and then owner Bud Adams, and huge egos. And they had a very public fight that they could not come to any kind of agreement on. And so they could have built the stadium for a lot less money. Instead, they let the team walk. And so people were really upset with Bud Adams, right? Because they felt like they had supported the team, even when the team, kept trying to kick the door in, but hadn't quite done it. I mean, that blue color symbolized so much for people in Houston. The police cars back then were that same color blue. Okay, so the blue, it meant something. So the the Oilers leave and they go away, and then the Texans start to try to build this franchise. And the new fans who weren't here are like, oh, yeah, that's unfortunate. But the people who've been here, the native Houstonians, the people who were Oiler fans, took it personally. Now, some of them have become a few of them are still fans and they're Titan fans. But so that's where the bad blood comes. And then seeing the stadium look like the Oilers stadium was just like, oh my goodness, people here took it it was a thing for them. It was a real thing.
Yeah. Our chat board has Emmett Jones on here, basically bringing up the fact that you guys now have Tier Tart, him matched up against an offensive line that he had, practiced against every day. While he was here in Titans uniform, I just kind of wonder how much time he actually gets to see on the field and what kind of a difference he'll make. He'll probably come into this game pretty emotional as well. What do you think?
I imagine he will. And as you know from, covering teams, when we get to see practice, the first 20 minutes, we see them stretching and maybe, a few passes. So I don't know how much time he's gotten. I don't get to see. After camp, you don't get to see much of practice.
Right, yeah.
But I imagine if he's been able to pick up, depends on how he has, managed that playbook. But definitely I expect that you would see him. And, of course, he's going to be emotional. I mean, right, Brad? What is it like when you go against your former team?
Oh, and leaving the way that he left. Well, he had some choice words to say about this franchise, too, on the way out. So it's not like it's not like he's going to try and, put a hole in our head if he gives a chance.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fired up. There won't be no need to try to motivate him on Sunday.
Right.
All right, I got a couple more questions for you. These are simple. Number one,
okay.
Who wins, and we know not our team here, who wins the AFC South of these 3, 8, and 7 teams? And this is something we're going to get into for the Titans during our show coming up. We'll ask for the Titans, but I'll ask you, what is the Texans' New Year's resolution?
Wow. So who wins the AFC South is so convoluted, but maybe the Jaguars, just because they have a couple of the tiebreakers, which I think it may come down to, because, so they could win. It'd be a far cry for the Texans to win, and I don't see it being the Colts. So maybe it's the Jaguars.
Okay.
I know that's not a great. And then the New Year's resolution, man, that's a good one. This team has, like you mentioned about what D'Amico's done and how he's brought them a ways. They have really, it's a whole different culture here. I guess the New Year's resolution is to take the next step and find the pieces that give them some consistency. I think it's probably I'm going to start, the games are always won in the trenches, defensive line, offensive line. I'm going to say their New Year's resolution is that they are able to go out and find those pieces up front that matter. Another pass rusher and somebody to fill that guard spot. That's my time.
How healthy are they actually up front, real quick, before we let you go, Kim? Because I saw Shaq Mason was in limited participation in practice, and, of course, Laramie Tunsil is alleged to be ready to go, but he's not healthy either 100%. How vulnerable do you think that they are up front?
I think that Laramie is as healthy as he's been all year. I mean, he hadn't said it, but I imagine he's been kind of nursing something all season, and because they're are competitive, he's tried to push through and play. Like, that's my Kim Davis observation, not anybody telling me that. So I think they're probably as healthy as they've been because every week they've had somebody not be available. It just depends on which one.
Well, Kim, we were glad that you were available to speak to us today.
Yes.
At Kimmy Davis, host of Chalk Talk, people can check that out. Let people know all the places they can consume this content that you're putting out.
Hey, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I always appreciate when somebody opens up their platform. And if you follow me on Twitter at Kim Y. Davis, Kimmy Davis, you can also get links to my shows. I do live shows every week, and I do some local TV here in the market. But Kim Davis, Kim Y. Davis on Twitter, Kim Y. Davis Media on Instagram, and then you can also follow me, same places, on YouTube and Facebook.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, and Happy New Year. And
Happy New Year.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Will you
Looking
guys
forward.
be coming in for the game?
Brad is going to fly down there in a private helicopter, and I'm going to ride in his suitcase, I
Hey,
think.
helicopter already used to. What's going on?
Well, listen, have a safe chopper flight in, Brad.
They're going to lower him down at the 50 of the Astrodome, Kim, before the game. They're going
Thanks
to
for
put him
joining
there
us,
with the
Kim.
cats.
You were
Hey,
awesome.
thanks for the time, and
All right,
Happy
thank
New
you,
Year.
guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy New Year.
At Kim Y. Davis on Twitter. All right, we come back. We've been saving this for y'all. It's not New Year's Eve, but for radio purposes, this is our New Year's Eve. Titans New Year's resolution. What should it be? So not your Titans resolution, like I'm going to go to 7 games next year. Not that. What should the Titans be doing? You want to eat better, right? You want to exercise. What do they need to do to get things right for 2024? We'll share ours. Would love to hear yours. 615-737-1045. F&M Bank Chat at Blaine and Mickey on Twitter. Hit us up there. Blaine and Mickey hanging out on this Friday, the last broadcast day for us to do a show of 2023. If you blinked, you missed it. 2023 is like sand through the hourglass, about to run out. So it's time for everybody to make New Year's resolutions. Our buddy Sammy here at the radio station was asking for ours earlier, and I thought that's ironic because we need to come up with some New Year's resolutions for these Tennessee Titans. And I would love to have your input, 615-737-1045. AJ has been on hold. I don't know if he's got a resolution. Let's take AJ's call because I know AJ has been wanting to talk about the Titans. AJ, drop a resolution in your call, and then we'll handle whatever other business you got for us.
My resolution is to be a better me. That's all.
That sounds like a loaded question, loaded answer, rather. A better you.
Yeah, I just need to be a better me, better than I was last year. That's all.
So do the Titans just need to be a better them? Should that be their resolution, or should it be like find the next Brad Hopkins?
I know they need to have a yard sale on the offensive line. Because their offensive line has been so trash, it's pitiful. To me, I think that's been the Achilles heel of this whole team has been the offensive line. You know, they should have did a little bit better. I understand some of the stuff they did, but they need veterans. They need some veterans to help school and tool these young pups out there. That's what I have to listen.
All right. Well,
that's right.
They got money to shop with, that's for sure. I mean, if you got a New Year's resolution and it was to spend money, they've got Spot Track shows they've got the most cap money of anybody in the league to spend.
Yeah, but good teams aren't going to let good players get away.
Yeah.
Especially that play up front in the trenches.
Oh, no.
So you don't want to repeat Andre Dillard all over again, throwing money at a dude that does have some veteran experience, but hasn't played better than the guy that he was replacing last year, and Dennis Kelly. So
I think the only place you can find a left tackle is in the draft. I mean, it's so rare that somebody would get away. Most of the time it would be more like a Dillard thing, or you get a backup on a team and he becomes a backup for you, or a situational player or a swing tackle where he's your backup for both positions. But I mean, we talked about this yesterday. Again, Brad Hopkins sitting in for Blaine. If you're new to Nashville, if you're one of the 17 people that moved here yesterday. So Brad was a Pro Bowl left tackle for the Titans. So when the Titans got here, Brad Hopkins was the tackle. And then so Brad Hopkins was the tackle until they drafted Michael Ruse, and he plays on the right for a year. And then Brad retires, and then Michael Ruse plays on the left then until they draft Taylor Lewan. And then Taylor Lewan, because Michael got hurt, Taylor Lewan takes over, and then he holds down that left tackle spot. And now it's just been a dang revolving door for a couple of years. And none of those doors have been good.
Yeah, it's consistency. And I think that when you invest in a lineman like they did last year with Peter Skoronski, I think people can see that there's a bright future for that young man. But finding someone that he can play with throughout the years that he's going to be here, that's important. You know what I mean? Because you just can't intermingle those parts up front. Mm-hmm. You know, them playing together, getting the timing down, just even different levels that they can tend to get at, when you're not trying to. The unspoken languages that go on in passing off stunts. This is developed over time, that cohesion that people talk about. There's no other position in football that mentions that word, because those five guys up front have to perform like a closed fist,
right?
Like a unit, not an open hand where the fingers are vulnerable and things can happen, getting snapped off, broken, whatever else. They have to play as a unit up front, almost like I remember Bob Young, my first coach here as an Oiler. He used to say, you got to be ballerinas. Almost in sync, like synchronized, what I mean? And that's literally how it has to work, what I mean? You don't get that kind of productivity by having the lineup flipped and flopped, especially if it's not due to injury. If you're trying to find out what five guys play the best week in and week out, then you got a problem. Mm-hmm. And that just seems to have been the case. I think that we thought that Jalen Duncan was replaced because of the wrist injury. We were talking about this yesterday, right? Well, no, Mike Vrabel made it seem like we're just trying to get the best five on the field to play at any given time to be able to give us a chance. Look at Joe Flacco's last night, his performance. Mm-hmm. One of the very first things that he mentioned was his time in the pocket. Any good quarterback with time in the pocket is going to find an open receiver. A great quarterback with time in the pocket, he is going to destroy your secondary. And that's what it comes down to. Because if you think about this, you don't get to be a quarterback in a National Football League if you can't throw the bean, if you can't hit receivers when you're supposed to. But what makes your job more difficult? When you got massive dudes that are paid millions of dollars to knock your head off. You mentioned that play that Joe made last night, running to his left. Mm-hmm. Why did he make that play? Out of desperation, because Quentin Williams had already bopped him upside the head but was chasing him to knock the crap out of him.
Right in the head.
Right. So he's trying to make things happen because he was forced out of the pocket. If that happens consistently, there's a problem. But most of the night, he had the ability or the chance, the opportunity to go through maybe a first, second, third progression, find the right guy, get rid of the football, and hell, if you got some mobility to you, take off. Because guess what? The pass rushers party already by you anyway.
Right.
So that pocket is so important. And I'll say it, and I know it sounds maybe narcissistic coming from a guy like me because I did play in the trenches. It is the most important position on the team. Defense doesn't score touchdowns. That's not their design, right? It's important to have a stout defense. It's probably as important. But to be able to have the integrity of the pocket stay intact, to be able to establish a running game that then makes it easier to move the chains. 3rd and 10 sucks compared to 3rd and 2. You see what I'm saying? Because the playbook is wide open when you have manageable distances to be able to convert 3rd down and keep those chains moving. And the longer that you're on the field, it makes it harder on the defense. You know what I mean? A 13-play drive, who do you think's exhausting a 13-play drive? You see them D linemen tapping the top of their helmet for a reason. Because it's hard for them to keep applying pressure and then having nothing to show for it because this offense keeps moving the chains. So those big bodies up front are super important. They are the buffer between the problems that quarterbacks face and them having success.
Let's take a couple of these phone calls. Again, 615-737-1045. What should the Titans' New Year's resolution be for 2024? We will share ours. We would love to hear yours. Brian in Smyrna will lead us off. Hey, Brian.
Hey, guys.
What's up, B?
Couple things. One, I think the Titans, for New Year's resolution, they need to figure out what is causing all these players to get hurt every year back to back to back. And two, on the offensive side, they need to bring in somebody like a Brad Hopkins or a Ben Jones for like a coach to get these guys ready to play on Sunday. They're just not ready. I mean, these top picks are coming in, and they look like they're still trying to play the college game. I think we need a legitimate offensive coordinator. Maybe like look at getting Eric Bieniemy or some other coach from a high-power offense to come in to sort of balance out with this defense and give our guys on defense a rest during the game. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Brian. That's a lot of stuff, a lot to unpack.
Brad, you ready to go coach the Titans?
Brian's ready to hire you.
You know what, Joseph? You're about to get me to saying some stuff I probably shouldn't say at this point.
Joey Bananas asking the questions, the thought-provoking questions there.
Let's just say I've already reached out.
Okay. Let's reach out to Jack in Nashville. Then we'll get back to this pressing story about the coaching here. Jack in Nashville, what should be the Titans' resolution for 2024?
Well, good afternoon. The Titans should figure out a way to keep Derrick Henry. You know, the average fan doesn't look at the Titans as a fantasy football team or doesn't fancy themselves an armchair general manager. The average fan roots for players they know and like game after game, year after year. And a marketing lesson from corporate America would be you don't get rid of the guy whose jersey 20,000 fans are wearing every Sunday and crater, fan loyalty like that. So that would be my New Year's resolution.
Thank you, Jack. That's a big question for a lot of people is what's the future of Derrick Henry with this team? Do they work out some common ground to bring him back? I think it was you said this yesterday, like maybe he's more valuable here than he is anywhere else for a variety
I'll put it
of
this
reasons.
way. Does he have a broken leg? Is there something wrong with his ability to run the football? No, not at all. But I think that we tend to get wrapped up in change. Mm-hmm. We always want to see something different when things aren't working out. I remember back in the day when people used to just watch teams, maybe this was before free agency and you saw different names on jerseys every single year and it was harder to track where these guys are going and coming. But you rooted for your team regardless of the ebbs and flows, right? Mm-hmm. Some year you were happy, some years you weren't. But that was your team. And the same can be said about players that stick around for a long time. Derrick Henry is the most tenured player, or at least one of them, that's on this roster now.
He's it.
Right. Yeah. So to think about moving on, to me, would be an injustice because that's a familiar face that fans have loved going and watching and supporting every single Sunday. And there's nothing wrong with his game. If the Titans' offensive line were performing at the level of, say, the Browns or the Eagles or the Niners, and they've got guys that, can definitely help out in every aspect of the offense, then Derrick Henry's numbers look better, right? Derrick Henry is only going to be as good as the guys up front, and that's tight ends included, and throw receivers in the mix too. Because if all of a sudden he breaks past the line of scrimmage and the DB brings him down, because a receiver did a George Pickens, you know what I'm saying? Then there's a problem. But it comes to, it's also understanding what you have as an offense. You know what I mean? If I don't have guys that can move the pocket forward, what I try to do is then maybe use the side-to-side method. You know what I'm saying? If I got guys that are fast enough to get to the edge, I'm not going to beat my head up against the wall trying to run through it. I'm going to go around the wall if I've got that ability. So understanding personnel, understanding who you're going up against. I'm not, calling out play calling or anything like that, but the news resolution for me would be, is it coaching? Is it personnel? Is it play calling? All of these things have to match up for a team to have success. And are they matching up right now? I would say 5 wins would say no.
And the words of Flipper. All right, we got resolutions to give. Taylor has a good one in the chat that a bunch of you guys are going to go, dang, Taylor's right. You got a New Year's resolution for the Tennessee Titans, 615-737-1045. If you're watching on Zone TV, we appreciate it. Remember, you can always watch the show there, and you can chime in via the FNM Bank chat. We'll be back for hour number 2. Oh, by the way, little birdie just told B-Hop, Joey Kent going to check in at 2:20. One Joseph Kent, SEC legend, that is. All coming up in hour number 2. Blaine and Mickey 1045 The Zone, hour number 2 of the program. Brad Hopkins, B-Hop, sitting in for the Hitman for a second day in a row as we help you get 2023 wrapped up. And, you know, you guys eat like black-eyed peas and hog jowls, and you got greens for New Year's. You do that?
I love me some hog jowls, but I don't eat it specifically for New Year's. No.
Okay, Joey Bananas, you're from Tennessee. Now, Brad's more of a northern guy. This is a southern thing. You got to eat certain foods for good luck.
Yeah, what's with the black-eyed peas though?
Black-eyed peas.
Gross. I mean, good night.
You don't like black-eyed peas?
No.
Oh, I like black-eyed peas, but I don't like specifically eat them on New Year's for good luck. Like,
okay. Well, have you been having good luck every year? If not, maybe you should look into it.
You know what? I've had some bad car trouble this year, so maybe I should.
My man Bananas is just going to be just scarfing down black-eyed peas and cursing his car the whole time New Year's Eve. Just telling you, man. As my grandma said, sometimes you get to listen to that wisdom. We're trying to come up with a New Year's resolution that works for the Titans, or maybe many, as they've won 5 games this year. So everything is on the table for resolutions. Brad got into his a little bit before we took the break. Had a couple of callers with their 615-737-1045. An interesting thing from Tyler. I'll start with his. Taylor H. Sorry, not Tyler. Taylor H. in the FNN Bank chat. Titans' resolution needs to be to finally develop a young quarterback. Hey, man. The last time a young quarterback got developed around here, he started with the oil derrick on his helmet, and he was a teammate of Brad Hopkins. And that guy got developed.
Yeah,
you know?
Even a couple of seasons on the sideline.
Yep.
Before they felt comfortable enough to give him the nod to being the guy. Now, I don't think that today's game gives that kind of luxury for a high draft pick like Steve was.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, right. That's not going to happen. But I will say the story behind Will Levis is interesting enough. Here was a guy that all of America sat and watched on the first night of the draft, and no one wanted to be him because he committed himself to being a guy that was going to be taken that first day, and he wasn't. Now, admittedly, behind the curtain, the Titans were looking at him, wanting to maybe get back into that first round and snag him, so that way it wouldn't have been a conversation. Maybe he was the next Lamar Jackson who was taken last in the first round, right? But in that second day, the Titans aggressively moved up and snagged that dude as a day 2 guy. So even in the year 5, there won't be a conversation about the 5th-year option because he wasn't a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that they could develop this young product that is a second-round pick with a first-round grade, there's a lot of potential there. And I don't know about you, but when I see him in the pocket and I see some of the things that he was able to do this year, there's a quiet confidence about him that knows he's not a number 2, that knows he should have been right up there with the guys that we saw get taken in the first round, the Bryce Youngs, the Anthony Richardsons, the C.J. Strouds. And I think that's one of the reasons why, even in this division that houses all of those guys except for Bryce, some very young quarterbacks, I think there should be some quiet optimism, Mickey, that this team has their guy that they can rely on. Now, I love his mentality. Anytime you can try and chuck Jalen Ramsey, do it every single time. And I know he's a Middle Tennessee boy, but I can't stand him anyway. Run his butt over every single time. Now, don't do that up against Myles Garrett.
Right.
You know what I mean? Somebody like that. Understand exactly why the rule was put in place, because we need to have you behind center rather than on the sideline.
Right.
But I love the tough yard kind of guy. I love the short sleeves. You know what I mean? It's not like they have billowing sleeves like, Bernie Kosar anymore, but I mean, there's veins popping on that dude's arms that are for real.
Oh no, he's full size.
And that flick of the wrist kind of thing, that's just not, conversation. When you talk about this dude, he can throw a mile. And I just like that ability, that confidence that he has, and the humility. Actually, maybe him getting taken in that second round was a good thing. The embarrassment of sitting there and not having your name called day 1 really kind of put things in perspective, because there's been a number of occasions, Mickey, where I've heard him thank the Titans for taking that chance, for being aggressive. Maybe there was another team in day 2 that was going to take him before we did and moved up a few picks to get him. But I think him understanding that the Titans really have given him a platform to show America exactly who he is, he's appreciative of that, and I think that we can pay him back by giving him that kind of support.
Joy Bananas, resolution. Let's hear it, brother.
My resolution for the Tennessee Titans in 2024 is to take a hard look in the mirror.
Wow, it's getting deep, man.
Yes, it is. And it's to figure out how to stop being mediocre. And that goes with the coaching staff and the players from top to bottom. And I'm not saying mediocre as in your record on the field. I'm talking about putting guys out there and bringing guys in that are not top-level starters. And that includes the offensive line, which we've seen for the past several years now, especially at that left tackle position. It goes for the secondary, where you get hit by injuries, and I understand that, but you bring in guys who are all undrafted free agents. And while I love their stories, I love that they're out there, and I love that they're competing, you're just not going to win games with that kind of roster. And it goes with the coaching staff. It's time to stop settling with mediocre. And I get, I'm not saying it's Mike Vrabel or any specific person, but we have seen a lack of elevation from the entire roster, the entire coaching staff, and it's time to stop doing that. It's time to bring in someone to elevate this team and bring in players and coaches that elevate this team, and it's time to stop settling for just okay.
Boy.
Man, you asked for it.
I feel like we need to clip that. You just need to clip your own video and put it out. And I hope everybody listens. Bananas just come out with the whole bunch there. Now I have to follow that, and I'm not at all prepared to do that. Mine was like, find a tackle. But that's fantastic stuff, though. Maybe you need to make some changes on the coaching staff. Maybe you need to change some. And I know he flipped and moved some people around last year, and some people have kind of come and gone, but maybe you need to take a good long look at everybody, right? At this point, I would take a good long look at strength and conditioning. We had a caller earlier who said, my resolution is they just stop getting injured all the time. And I'd look at everything. They ended last year with 7 straight losses. They haven't won an AFC South game. What are they, 0-7 in their last 7? So they'll be 0-8. If they were to lose to the Texans, they'd be 0-8. If they lose to the Jacksons, they would end 0-9 in their last 9 AFC South games. I mean, it has been a slog. If things aren't working, the true definition is, what's the definition of insanity? Is you do the same thing and you expect different results. Yeah. It's a lot of the same thing and expecting different results. And I'm not a fire everybody guy. I don't. You listen to the show, I don't do that because there's probably people who want me to get fired. I don't come on here and call for people's jobs. No. But I would say this. I would look at everything, even down to like what day you serve burritos in the cafeteria, because you've dropped down to this point where the other 3 teams in your division are all competing for the division. They all have the same record. I mean, you should be, they're 8-7. You could easily be in the mix. What did Mike Vrabel say? And he's right. Well, we've lost 7 one-score games. They've lost 7 one-score games this year. Yeah. 7.
Yeah.
Because I had just done the math, and then the next day he brought it up in the press conference. So did he do a great job to get a terrible roster to almost winning 7 more games? Or are things just not up to par because maybe you should have won some of those games?
This isn't your traditional 5-win team, though. And I got to admit that. I know people are saying I'm Pollyanna or whatever, but if you think about it, when you say, boy, that team won 5 games, normally you're thinking the results of those games were just dirt road whoopings, right?
Not that at all.
No. This team is competitive, to say the least.
Yep.
What I want to see the Titans do is have training camp be competitive. I know it sounds crazy, right? But Jeffrey Simmons was giving you a prediction of what the season was going to look like. They can't block me.
Mm-hmm.
And if a guy in practice is saying that, what do you think the rest of the league is saying? Now, I admit it.
They can't block us either.
This is Jeffrey.
Boy.
This is Jeffrey Simmons, though, okay?
Yeah.
Admittedly, he's going to be the recipient of a couple of double teams most of the time, and rightfully so. But if training camp doesn't produce some battles to where you're saying, I confidently can stand behind this offense and what it's able to do,
right,
then you're going to have problems. Because these are the guys you see week in and week out, right? If when Jeffrey Simmons says, hey, we've arrived, then I'll buy into it. If Danico Autry says, we've arrived, I'll buy into it. Harold Landry, all these dudes that go up against them regularly in team situations, one-on-one drills. If they can confidently say, because I was excited when I heard Jeffrey Simmons say that Peter Skoronski was as strong as they come, because he said he's a strong dude and he knows what strong looks like. Mm-hmm. There was some excitement for me knowing that, hey, we got some dogs up
real
front.
Knows real.
Right,
real
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to hear more of. Whether it's a new draft pick, maybe it's that Joe Alt dude for Notre Dame, or maybe it's somebody that feels that going into free agency, they're undervalued in their place, in their current place, and they're saying, you know what? I'm doing some good things here in practice. I've gotten in a handful of games, and I can show you my value. Let another one of these 31 other teams find some value in me, and maybe they do look up and end up here. Mm-hmm. But there does need to be change up front, And I'm like you, Mickey. I never call for anyone's job because it's not as easy as that. I'm not as flippant to say, hey, your son and your kids that are in private school or going to school, whatever else, the ones that have their peer group here, your wife has a great nucleus of friends here. You know what? I'm going to take all that away from you because I'm calling for your husband's job.
Right.
I just can't do that because I understand behind the scenes exactly what this is like. They don't live over at 460 Great Circle Road. That's just the place that they work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after that, they go home and they deal with all the same things that we deal with. They stand in line at Kroger just like we do.
Yep.
Or maybe not Kroger, maybe it's Publix.
Well, just wherever they
Whole
shop.
Foods.
Aldi's. All the free shout-outs.
Sprouts.
I know the easiest thing is, and we got to get to break because we're going to get Joey Kent on here. You know, I'm writing down mine, and I'm like, find an offensive tackle. Find an offensive tackle. I would dare to say this. Develop a scouting and development and coaching system so that whomever you choose to be the next left tackle has a chance to succeed. Because Panda didn't, Radens didn't. It's looking even like Nicholas Petit-Frere is not. Now, he's been injured and gambled and whatever else, but that's a 1, a 2, and a 3. They spent their resources. They didn't develop them. They didn't get them where they needed to go to be the Titans left tackle.
And your 11th overall pick, who was a tackle, you've moved to guard.
Well, there is that too. I've talked about that till I'm blue in the face. But change your system in a way that whomever you pick next, and they missed on
Isaiah?
Well, no, the free agent.
Dillard.
They missed on Dillard. So change whatever you do to evaluate and to develop that talent so the next guy has a chance to succeed in ways that the last 3 years worth of guys has not succeeded. That would be mine. Oh, and also find an explosive playmaker.
Use that money. You're not balling on a budget anymore.
No, you are not.
Go
balling
find
on a
go find
budget.
go find some proven players, fill this team out, and go compete.
We have Davion on the line. Let's take Davion's call real quick.
Balling on the budget.
And then we'll get to Joey Kent. Davion, thanks for calling Blaine and Mickey. How you doing? You there, Davion? Awful quiet. Davion once, twice.
Come on, Davion, you're a kid. Let's go.
Hello?
Hello, what you got, buddy?
I got Davion on the radio. Let me get off here, kid.
Hey, you guys are on the radio. Anytime you want to join us
Tell
would be
your dad
great.
to hush.
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay.
Davion,
All right.
what's going on, man?
I'm going to put Davion on hold. Let's get back to him later. That didn't seem to be going well. Let's try one more time. All right, Davion, are you there? Let's try one more time.
Yes.
All right, what you got for us, buddy?
Talking about baseball.
Okay, well, what about baseball?
I played with Miles, Ramon's son.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Well, man, we wish you guys the best with your baseball season. We were just talking some Titans resolutions. You got a baseball resolution for this year? Hit some home runs, maybe?
I hit 20 this year.
What?
I can't hear.
Yep.
20 bombs. My goodness. Well, man, hey, your New Year's resolution is to leave some for Miles and the other guys then. You're doing all the hitting. Well, Davion, we appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate hearing from Davion, and we appreciate hearing from Joey Kent. We will do that next. Blaine and Mickey with special guest Brad Hopkins.
There are a lot of diagnoses out there, and there's a pill for everything. But not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all pills are good for you. Well, hey, it's Blaine Bishop. And when you get a diagnosis for your European auto repair, get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home of second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix. It could not only save your vehicle's life, but could actually save you from a lot of stress that ruins your weekend. Life's too short, get stressed out, and dang, you're angry. Well, be happy and go to Eurofix. At Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. Not high-pressure sales tactics, right? Well, at Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And at Eurofix, you never pay dealer pricing. All you have to do is go check them out. From Franklin to Hundred Oaks to Murfreesboro to Bellmead and now Mount Juliet. All you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEuroFix.com. That's myEuroFix.com. But always tell them Blaine sent you.
So this is a small bird, too, for someone
right.
that's never seen a bobwhite before. It's this little round softball.
That's right. Yeah, I wouldn't. They're not much bigger than my fist. They've got little legs, but they're a ground-nesting, ground-dwelling bird. If they never have to fly in their life, they wouldn't. Right? They just do that to get away from hawks and owls for the most part, or hunters. What they need is largely herbaceous plant communities. Right? So they need wildflowers. They need a small proportion of grasses. I don't need vast grasslands, right? I need stuff that most people would call weeds. Those are providing good brood cover, good nesting cover, a lot of insects, right? That's what chicks need to develop early.
Bridgestone Firestone is a quail focus or focal area. So tell us a little bit why.
Yeah, it's largely because there are very few places that have wild quail in the state of Tennessee anymore. And there's dozens of different factors that lead into that, right? Everybody wants to jump right to predators, but it's a habitat issue, right? Mm-hmm. It's a landscape change, whether we're talking about development or whether we're talking about fire not being on the landscape anymore, or fields and young forests progressing into closed canopy forest, right? So the farm, just by nature of it being an open landscape that's been maintained that way, has held on to some birds. And compared to most other places in the state, we're one of the very few. On top of that, the potential for growing that population, it's higher here than just about anywhere else.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. It's the end of 2023, so this would be the last guest that we had on. I told B-Hop, look, I don't want just anybody. I want a legend. Like a registered legend on like a list of legends. I want an SEC legend. And B-Hop said, I got one for you. I got Joey Kent. And he's on the line right now. Joey, thanks for being our legendary last guest of 2023, man.
Man, I thought you were about to say Peyton Manning.
Hey, how do you think
you called me?
How do you think Peyton Manning got all those accolades? Who was catching all those passes and running for touchdowns?
I have no idea, but since you said legendary, I thought, well, they just called me, but I guess they got Peyton instead of me.
Man, first of all, great to hear your voice. Always fantastic to have you on this or any show on this radio station. But for people who don't know what I'm talking about a month ago, you were honored as an SEC legend, and I know I was thrilled to see that, and so it was just everybody who knows you, and everybody who knows you loves you, and congratulations, man. What an unbelievably cool thing to get recognition like that.
Yeah, it really was an incredible weekend. I was humbled by it. I had a lot of, family, friends that came into town to celebrate with me. Obviously I couldn't do it alone. Obviously I had a really good quarterback in Peyton, great teammates, great teams that I played on, man. It was a fabulous weekend. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Oh, gosh, the honor's all ours. So I don't know if Nico will ever reach Joey Ken or Peyton status, but whatever his journey is, it essentially starts on Monday. He starts his journey, hopefully for all Vol fans, to becoming a Tennessee legend. But here we go, man. What a time to draw your first start in a bowl game.
Yeah, and it's against a tough opponent, man. Iowa's a good team. They won 10 games. Granted, some of those games weren't against great competition, but as we know, they play great defense, man. Just kind of looking at them, they play a lot of zone, but they're very sound. Now, obviously not very explosive on offense, but Nico's going to have a chance to play against really good competition. And I would assume a lot of the Iowa players didn't opt out to pursue any type of professional career. I'm pretty sure they have their full, close to their full team that's participating in the game in a couple of days. And obviously Tennessee has some, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they have some guys that have either transferred out or in the portal or opted out. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, Tennessee and Iowa.
Is this a litmus test, Joey? What I mean by that is a couple of seasons ago when Hendon Hooker was behind center, this offense was one of the best, if not the best, in the country. Mm-hmm. And replacing him was going to be hard, and people knew that. I think getting back to that identity seems to be the focus, and it might very well be. I looked at Josh Heupel's recruiting class, the early signing day. At least he's in the top 15. So is this a litmus test of going up against a stout defense like Iowa as to who they really are come 2024?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot there, Brad. Hendon, I don't think people realize how good Hendon was for Tennessee, his last year. He didn't turn the ball over. He put the ball where this ball was supposed to be. He ran the ball when he needed to run. So it was hard to replace him with Milton. Milton actually put up really good numbers this year. Mm-hmm. We fell short against, the teams that we want to beat on a consistent basis, but he put up some good numbers, so it was just hard to follow him. You're looking at Nico, man. He has some of those intangibles that Hendon has. He can move around in the pocket. He makes good decisions. Granted, we haven't seen a lot of him this year, but what I've seen, man, and what I've heard from coaches and the staff around the program, that he's special, and he'll get opportunity to play again against a really good defense, man. And I don't know if it's going to be a litmus test for him to kind of show what his potential might be. But this is a good opportunity for him to put some good film on tape going into next season. I had this conversation with some friends of mine about players opting out of bowl games, and you got to understand, man. It's time to change. You look at it. People say, well, why is a third round pick opting out of bowl games? Third round picks, man, their signing bonus, I looked this up, man, their signing bonus is $1.26 million. The total contract is $5.85 million. So you can't necessarily blame a guy for either saying, hey, man, I love this team, I love this program. I'm just going to sit this out, man. It's time to change. Brad and I, when we were playing, there's no way we even thought that, man. Even if Brad, you're a first-round pick, man. There's no way you even thought to sit out a bowl game. But the money where it is these days and where you can potentially make more on that second contract, you got to understand it, man. And it's a different time. Bowl games now, I look at it as even before it was an extra spring practice for your team. Mm-hmm. Now it's really for younger guys, right? Mm-hmm. It's for the younger guys. We're going to see a lot of young guys on the field in a couple of days, man, and that gives them an opportunity to have some momentum going into the off season, get some film so the coaches can know what they can do against a really good team, and then they can build on that heading into the summer.
Joey, I can totally understand where a Florida State team that gets left out of the college football playoffs undefeated would want to move to the SEC because of all the lure that comes along with it. You got the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs. Is Rocky Top a destination? Can we mention them amongst those teams that even the transfer portal kids would want to come to?
I think from an offensive standpoint, yes. I mean, you get a chance to play, especially if you're a receiver. Now, the thing about playing receiver at Tennessee, you got to be in that top
4,
yeah,
maybe 5, because the way our style is, guys don't come off the field because we're trying to go so fast. So if you feel confident enough you can make that top 4 or 5, you should be good. Running back, man, look at the running backs. It really, what makes the offense go is the running game. And we have some backs there that, you know, 2 are one is, I guess 2 are both not going to play. We're going to have Dylan Sampson, and he's going to start for us. We're going to have Cam Sheldon as his backup. But, you know, if you're a running back, man, that's an attractive place. Defensively, you have a chance to play. You see a lot of holes, especially in the secondary. I think we have 8 guys in the secondary that left or in the transfer portal or just decided not to come back, man. So if you're a defensive player, I mean, it's an attractive place to go to. And then you look at the tradition of Tennessee. It has everything that any other college has. You know, you have the facilities, you have the money, you definitely have the fans, you have the fanfare, you have the stadium. To answer your question, you know, if I wasn't like a Tennessee guy, Tennessee would be attractive to me if I was in high school.
Joey Kent, our guest, what does this thing need to do to get back to just rocking like your era of Tennessee football, where you clocked in every year and it was going to be a 10-win season and you were going to compete for the SEC championship and you were going to be in the mix at the end of the season for something even bigger? Especially, Joey, you got 12 teams going into the playoff now. It'll be easier than it's ever been to at least have a shot at that. What does this team need to do, this program, to have the Joey Kent, Peyton Manning, T. Martin era of consistency?
I think just depth, man. I think we have really good frontline players. I think we can compete with anybody as far as like frontline. You know, you look at the games this season. You know, we can compete against anybody. And like, look at Alabama. They're a playoff team. We dominated them in the first half. But look at the second half. That's where their depth and their talent came in. We don't have that same depth as Georgia or Alabama or some of the other schools. And that comes from a lot of different ways of, you know, previous coaching staffs, you know, people leaving, you know, there's a lot of different reasons behind that. But when Tennessee was really good in, you know, mid-90s, 2000s, you had guys that were just waiting. You know, I played behind, you know, a guy named Corey Fleming. He was a second round pick to the Dallas Cowboys, and I learned from him. Like, I learned how to be good from him. I saw what good looked like week in and week out. And I think Tennessee is close. I mean, they have some really good players, man. They really do. But what about that guy that's behind them, or that third guy that's behind the backup? How good is he? And if that top guy goes out, how much of a drop off would that be? So I think that's where we need to kind of start. And, you know, in the SEC offense defensive line, we have to have more big guys on both sides of the ball. And in the SEC, that's where you're going to win.
Hanging out with Joey Kent here. You mentioned, Brad brought up last year and basically how good Hendon Hooker was, and then it was sort of a different season offensively this year with Joe Milton running the show. And Joey, you're certainly a guy who played in that program and in the SEC, and you said, hey, man, Joe Milton actually had really good stats this year. I'll ask you this. Hendon Hooker's legacy seems very secure with Vol fans. What's Joe Milton's legacy?
I think they'll look at him as a guy that hung in there. He could have very easily left 2 years ago, and I think he helped Hendon Hooker. Especially his last year. They were such great friends, from what I understand, off the field, and he had a comfort level with him. And Hendon knew it was his team, and Joe wasn't doing anything to undermine that, right? And he was very supportive of him. They helped each other. I think, potential is something that the word has always been out there with Joe Milton. Like, he has so much potential. Man, I've never, like, I've been on the field with him, a few times from practice to games. I've never seen a guy throw the ball like I've never seen anything like what Joe Milton has. If anybody that's kind of been on the field and kind of seen the way he throws, you can see it, from TV and from the stands, but if you just stand behind him and watch him throw the ball, it's something I've never seen before. And I think that's going to be attractive to some NFL team. It's going to be a GM or a coach that says, hey, with this arm, I can do something with it. I don't know what I can. And he might go on and do well in NFL, or he might not. But I think he'll have an opportunity to play the next level because his talent is so special. But really, Mickey, to answer your question, man, I think he's going to be looked at as a guy that hung in there when he didn't have to and played well in spots. And, you know, could he have played or made a few more throws that could have changed the outcome of games? Yes. But that's the way the ball bounces in SEC. And I look at him like he did well. You know, you look at Tennessee's roster and team. If you thought we were going to win 12 games and get into the playoffs, you're kind of fooling yourself a little bit. It was a 8, 9, maybe 10-win season or type of team, and if the ball bounced your way, maybe a little bit more, but it didn't. But I think highly of him, the way he persevered over the last couple of years, and the way his attitude and the way he performed this year.
We're speaking with my former teammate Joseph Edward Kent here on the Blaine and Mickey Show, and you know what, JK? I don't know if you imagine yourself spending so much time in the state of Tennessee when you left Johnson High School back there in Alabama, but the Titans took you second behind Kenny Holmes in 1997, and 3 years later, we're playing in the Super Bowl. Just talk about that journey. Talk about that transition of playing in Neyland Stadium to then Adelphia Coliseum. What was that transition like for you?
You know what? That's that. I wish we had more time to kind of talk about that transition. But overall, you look at. We all know the story. We obviously didn't start in Adelphia. We started in Memphis. That was my first year.
Right.
Heading out to Baptist. I'm looking at Baptist Sports, Baptist Center. Out in Bellevue, and coming from the facilities at Tennessee, I was like, wait a minute. wait a minute.
Buildings? Yeah.
Wait a minute. What is, and we're out on soccer fields. Like, it's just like, what this is the NFL, then, playing every week in Memphis and playing at Vanderbilt, and then, eventually ending up in Adelphia. It was a transition. It definitely was. And, for me personally, I enjoyed my time with the Titans and had the best teammates, had the best time, and that Super Bowl run was the best. And there's a lot of, Kevin and I talk about this all the time when we had our podcast. Like, it wasn't the most pleasant experience for me personally because I had so much expectation on myself, and I felt like I didn't live up to that expectation, especially being a second-round pick. But looking back on it now, I enjoy the experience that I had, and I look at it as a blessing, and I set myself up for after football, and obviously I'm blessed to have done reasonably well after football, and still have these relationships. That's really the most important thing as far as me going to Tennessee, being an Alabama kid. Like, I never would have thought I would live in Tennessee this long, right? I lived in Tennessee more than I lived in Alabama at this point. And going to Tennessee and then transitioning to the Titans just allowed me to continue these relationships that I started back in 1992 in Knoxville, and then transition to Nashville and being, these, fabulous teammates that I see, periodically in Nashville. And I get a chance to go back to Knoxville 4 or 5 times, 4 or 5 games a year. My daughter goes there now, and so it's been a wonderful journey. From a personal standpoint, I wish I would have done better or more from an NFL standpoint. But that's not how the story was written for me, and I've accepted that, right, and moved on, and I'm enjoying life and enjoying this journey after football and kids and all that good stuff. So, man, and we had, Brad, we were at Frank's get together, 3 weeks ago, and that's what it's all about, man. At this point, we've been done with football for 20 years. Like, all those stories are great, but it's about the people. It's about the locker room that we had and the experiences that we had, and we can't go back and change any of that stuff. Like, you can't go back and change that. Now all you can do is kind of move forward, enjoy each other, because this life is precious, man, and you just never know what's going to happen. So, just enjoy each other, enjoy life, enjoy those experiences, lie a little bit, make those stories a little bit better than what they are. You know what I mean? But have fun with each other and just live life.
Joey, I can't let you go without asking you your thoughts about those kids that are in our lockers now over there at 460 Great Circle Road. Receiving corps seems to be under fire a little bit. Some guys are playing tremendously, especially with the additions of some veterans like DeAndre Hopkins. But there are some guys that need to step it up a little bit that actually wore the same shoes you're wearing. Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah. Man, there's a lot of factors with that, though, man. You know, you look at the offensive style. I mean, you look at personnel. You look at injuries. You look at a personal accountability for those guys. I mean, what I would tell a guy that's kind of similar, that was similar in my situation, like, man, just try to take advantage of every situation that you can in those moments, because you just never know when that's going to end. You never know if you'll ever make it to a Super Bowl. You never know if you make it to a playoff game. Enjoy it while you can. Make the most amount of money. Develop relationships while you're in it. While you're an NFL player. I know a lot of NFL players, you know, you don't want to kind of be around, and you don't know who to trust, but you have a platform, right? As an NFL player, I think you should try to develop relationships while you have that platform, when you're in it. So when you're done, whatever that looks like, 3, 8, 10, 15 years down the line, man, you can lean on those relationships. And I wouldn't say take advantage of them, because it's a two-way street, but you have an opportunity to do something on the field, try to take care of your family as long as you can, but then also look at that, look at the other side of it after football, and kind of set yourself up on that end too.
Joe, it's fantastic stuff, man. I knew there's a reason we picked you as our last guest of 23. You're out here giving us some life lessons. We needed them.
Preach, brother, preach.
Yeah.
I think I need some life lessons myself, so I guess I'm speaking to myself a little bit.
Don't we all?
And I know we're up against the break, but I will just say this. I mean, I worked in college administration, not even as long as I'd wanted to have, but, guys and gals who were graduating, they'd always come to my office and they'd talk to me. And, we had a guy who came in as this heralded quarterback, and he tore both of his knee ligaments, and he tore another one again. His career didn't go like what he wanted. And he was just so upset. And I told him, look, football finishes with everybody at some point. Football, and Brad and I were talking about this yesterday. Football says, hey, I'm done with you. Thanks for everything. It's the next guy's time. And all you could hope is that you are the person on the other side who does all the things that Joey Kent does, that you work hard and you take care of your family and you're a good teammate and you're a good friend. So even though, like you said, gosh, that's just not the way my story was written, but everything that football is supposed to teach you, it taught you. And then you went out and did the stuff with it that you're supposed to do, I mean, you did all those things. So I would tell you or anybody who maybe, gosh, it just didn't quite go the way I thought it would. But if they come out like you, then it did go the way it was supposed to go.
Nick, yeah, I appreciate that, man. Football is the greatest teacher out there, man. It's in my opinion, it's the greatest sport because it teaches you so much. I mean, it just teaches. It's a great teacher, and hopefully I learned some lessons along the way. And I appreciate you guys for having me on today.
Well, we appreciate you teaching those lessons. Hey, SEC legend Joey Kent. Thank you, man. Thank you for everything. Happy New Year.
See you, Joey.
Happy New Year. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
All right, bye.
Yes, sir. B-Hop hit that one out of the park. He goes, I got a special caller at 2:20. Y'all are going to love this. Of course we did. All right. We end every Friday show. We call our shot. It's bowl games. There's lots going on. Kentucky may have just lost one to Clemson. Chris in Clarksville is hot about that. We'll take Chris's call, and we will call our Chris hold. 615-737-1045. We will call our shot in our final segment of 2023 next.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Going to call our shot here in just a second. Shots. Emmett says, Brad and Mickey, great show. Happy New Year. Thank you. And Happy New Year to you. Chris in Clarksville. Hey, how about that, man? Kentucky was just cruising. They were going to put Dabo and Clemson away. Alas, they did not. And Clemson punched a touchdown in late to put them away. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, first, let me apologize to your screener. I was like 10 seconds after the game when I called. I was a little hot.
That's okay, man.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to you guys, your families, our wonderful fellow listeners. Here's the deal, guys. I have watched this for the last 4 or 5 years. I love Mark Stoops as an idea. He's done a wonderful job of building a program, okay? But watching him is like watching the Titans every week. Hey, we got a lead. Now let's play prevent defense and give the game away. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching the Titans do it. I'm tired of watching Kentucky do it. Okay? I realize we just re-signed the man. gave him a lot of money. But this is ridiculous. If you cannot play defense like you play defense all game, then why are you on the field? If you are there just to simply let people catch passes in front of you and give them a 15-yard cushion, why are you on the field? And I mean that for college players and for pro players. I know pro players are supposed to have a lot of pride, and they're getting paid a lot of money to not let those things happen. But this is the defense that we're telling them they have to pay. Hey, you know what? Just let these guys do whatever they want to do. Keep them in front of you. I honestly believe not just the Titans or not just the Wildcats, but both, and several teams around the country. Somebody listening to me right now has a team that does the same thing, and it drives them nuts. Quit giving away games. Go assert your dominance, be an alpha male, and knock somebody's head off. Y'all have a great rest of your holiday season. Thank you for taking my call, and I'll talk to y'all next year.
Man, Chris with the Chevy Chase, holy hallelujah, where's the Tylenol moment there?
Bringing the heat.
He was bringing the heat. I don't blame you. I'd be PO'd too. It's been a rough season for a lot of people around here, Chris. We feel you. Time to call the shot, courtesy of our friends at Chattanooga Whiskey. The perfect lineup this football season. Chattanooga Whiskey 91, Cask 111, and 99 Rye. Available at your local retailer. The perfect weekend deserves the perfect pour. Chattanooga Whiskey. Available at your local retail store. Joy Bananas, what you got, man? And it's time to make the magic happen.
Before I call my shot.
Okay. Breaking news.
Trevor Lawrence will not be playing this weekend. He is ruled out with his shoulder injury.
Boy, he has taken an abject beating this year, and the Jags have been on a slide lately.
I know we talked about who might win the AFC South. C.J. Beathard is the Jags quarterback. Could be 2 weeks, could be just 1 week. We'll see.
Local guy gets his shot, man.
Anyways,
CJ
back
Beathard.
to my shot.
Yeah.
I'm going to look at this Citrus Bowl because this Citrus Bowl, it's interesting to me. I don't know what Tennessee's offense is going to look like. You're losing some guys, some really important guys like Jalen Wright and Jabari Small in the backfield. You're losing your starting quarterback, Joe Milton, having to throw your young freshman out there. But there's a guy on this offense that I really, really like, and I'm so glad he's going to get his opportunity. And it's not the 5-star quarterback. It is the sophomore running back in Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson is going to have a day. He's going to have 100 total yards receiving, and because he's a great pass catcher, and he's going to score at least, I'm saying multiple touchdowns, but at least one touchdown against a really good Iowa defense, and he's going to put himself on the map. Dylan Sampson.
Dylan
Call
Sampson.
my shot.
Ding.
We have ran the Titans down the road all week. This weekend, they go back home to Houston with no pressure. They're the underdog, and the Texans have everything to play for. The Trevor Lawrence news means that the Jags are vulnerable.
Yep.
The Raiders are versus the Colts. Now, admittedly, it's in Indianapolis, but we know the momentum that the Raiders have after what they did to the Chiefs. So there's the potential for DeMeco Ryan and company to take a hold of the division, and that means something. That puts more pressure on them.
Oh, pressure bursts pipes. That's what they say.
DeAndre Hopkins gets to go back home to play against a team that he once wore the jersey for. And Will Levis is back in the lineup, still trying to prove that the Titans got it right. So I'm going to say all of those things lined up, and the fact that I'm going to bleed the Titans blue until I die. The Titans get a dub on the road. I know that's something that's been scary.
Let's go.
On the road.
Yeah.
Divisional game.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah. They get it done this weekend. And I'm going to say by more than a field goal.
Oh, my gosh.
By a touchdown.
These last 5 games in the series decided by an average of 5 points. A Vrabel special. All right, I'll do mine. Cody in Fairview with one final resolution before we wrap it up. Hey, man, we got to make it quick. What you got, buddy?
My New Year's resolution is to be more grateful as a football fan because I'm a Titans and Vols fan, and I have seen my fair share of bad teams be on the field. And that last caller, I think his name was Chris.
Yeah.
I cannot believe we've reached a point in time where Kentucky fans are expecting to win every game. That I can't believe we've reached that point. And I will tie that in with I will call my shot.
Do it.
I will call my shot. I will call my shot saying Kentucky fans like Chris are going to be the reason Mark Stoops leaves and then they go back into mediocrity.
Oh, my gosh. Merry Christmas. He says, Cody. His last shot is a shot against. What better way to end the show?
Love it.
Here's mine. Alabama beats Michigan. Texas beats Washington. We get a rematch of Alabama and Texas.
Whoa.
Calling it.
I think I have that as my final two as well.
I want it to happen.
I want Washington to win, but
Yeah.
I don't see it happening.
This rematch would just be too good for college football. Nick Saban just waiting to write that next Saban chapter. Wouldn't that be something? All right. Happy New Year to everybody. We are thankful for you. Be safe with whatever you do over this weekend. Enjoy your football and your food and your family and your friends. And we will see you next year. But
in the meantime,
in between time, peace.